all day of wedding photography on a Nikon camera, the Nikon Z8 to be specific. And the reason I'm choosing this rather than the Z6 III or the Z5 II is because there's no blackout. So this is more for the YouTube video than for any real reason. Main lens for the day, 24-70 f2.8, great lens for wedding photography. This is the old version, but the new one is nice as well. Also within this video, I'm going to walk you through an album build. So if you are a wedding photographer and you're looking how do I build my albums for my couples, Fundy designer, we're gonna go through it later in this video. And that there is my wife, Lindsay. She is the main photographer today. I am the secondary photographer today, which is nice. I think that even if you have a full wedding season booked, it's still nice to get out and second shoot, see how other people take pictures so you don't get caught in a routine that you can't break out of, and then you're trapped in a prison of wedding photography. I'm kidding, it's not ever really like that, but you do find a rhythm that you usually fall into during a wedding season, and maybe you stop doing the creative shots and stop thinking a little bit too hard about that, and just you're there to get it done. That's how I feel after 30 or 40 weddings in a wedding season. But then you go out as a second photographer for a day with not as much pressure. There's still pressure, you still gotta do a good job, but not as much pressure as being the main photographer. Also, if you're introverted and just that it's a little mentally taxing to go out there and communicate with people all day, you don't do the family photos whenever you're the second photographer. Or at least I don't today. I don't know what your agreements look like, but maybe you're second shooting your family photos. I have control and trust issues when it comes to that. I think that the family photos are probably the most important photos of the entire day. And even though they're probably the most boring to take, it is important that I get those correct. So I'm going to trust myself, even though I have full trust in everyone else that I work with. When it comes down to it, is your name on the contract. You don't want to disappoint your couples. Now you will see all my settings. They're on the screen right now. And it is a real wedding day, so I'm doing my best to do the correct thing with settings, but sometimes things just get a little crazy. Maybe my shutter speed gets too low or my ISO gets too high. I would say overall, when it comes to any current Nikon camera, any current camera at all out in the mirrorless world, that as long as you're not going into the 10,000 plus ISO territory, the image is probably good, as long as you're roughly close on the exposure. If you're 5 stops under and at 8,000 ISO and the image is in mixed lighting conditions and there's no light on your subject, then yeah, it's gonna be a problem to recover. But overall, as long as you're pretty close, I think you're gonna be safe. And also, if it is just a few images that you do something that you shouldn't have, maybe the ISO is just way too high, there's probably some AI software that can help you out for those images, but it's just not workflow nice to have to do that for an entire wedding gallery. I've also changed my picture profile I'm going to do a full video on this. I promised this a long time ago. I will be doing this soon. And this is a recipe I pulled from somebody on Reddit, and it's really, really nice. There's also some black and white picture profiles and a bunch of other stuff that I will be including in this video to come here on the channel. So please subscribe. Also, if you didn't know this, this is something that I've seen a few comments about. So when you go into your white balance, you actually have other options under some of these settings that there's down arrow. So under auto white balance, you can actually choose from these three. So auto keep white, auto keep overall, or auto keep warm. Usually I'm keeping them warm, but today I'm going to keep the overall atmosphere. So basically, if you're ever looking at your auto white balance and you're like, wow, what does it do? What is this camera doing? You have some control over that, and you don't have to customize it out too specifically. At least you have those three options to start with, and I've always found that one of them is good enough. All right, now we're going through some first looks. We had the bridesmaids, the grandma kinda, and the dad. I'm also not going to show you too many of the final images. If you are interested in seeing some final images, there's lots of other behind the scenes videos with a ton of them. And also in the future, they'll all have settings on them as well, which will hopefully be helpful, but also don't rely too much on specific settings, because even though I shot something at a specific f-stop and shutter speed and ISO, it's probably not what made the picture. There's also the distance of myself to my subject for depth of field and lens choice and a variety of other things. It will give you an idea. The settings will give you an idea of at least where I start technically, but don't interpret them as the way to make a great image. Now, some new revelations in autofocus technology It's not really autofocus technology. I guess it is. It's stuff that I use and I haven't really talked about on the channel. I will be making a full Nikon autofocus video. It will use some of the clips from this wedding day as an example, but one of the updates that I've done is I've actually set independent settings for my vertical and horizontal. And when you enable this setting, it's kind of nice. It's also maybe confusing if you're not expecting it. But when you change from horizontal to vertical, your focus point stays where it was when it was last in vertical mode. So if you are photographing a couple coming down the aisle and you're doing some vertical photos because that's all social media really wants, and then you're switching to horizontal and your focus point's in a completely different spot, you can enable this setting so that you have independent settings. I don't do it all day. I just mostly do it for the ceremony because that's kind of the fastest paced environment that I have to do both horizontal and vertical, but it is really, really nice to have. And I feel like it's a setting that not a lot of people have found. Now we're rolling into the ceremony. ChatGPT describes the ceremony for a wedding as, I'm kidding, we're not going to do that. I am on a 24-70 this time, but I always have, and I talk about this on every camera system of every video I do on this channel, that I have a button set up to go into APS-C crop mode on all the systems. On Nikon, it's one of the two front function buttons, and it's amazing to be able to go into crop mode, but sometimes you forget. So Nikon does this wonderful thing. See, I was in crop mode that entire time and I didn't even know. So now I'm in DX crop mode and you don't really know. But if you go into image area, DX crop alert, now it flashes in the top right there. So at least you have some sort of warning. I wish it was more. I wish that something red was flashing that would alert me, but it's fine. I don't go to crop mode a lot. I would say 80% of it is during the ceremony when I just don't want to get too close. And the remaining 20% is probably during speeches. If I'm on 85 prime, you'll see this later in the video and I just want to crop in a little bit. You are essentially cropping in real time in your camera. And yeah, you could absolutely crop this in post, but I use a system called Imagen for my automatic editing of my wedding images. I'll put a link down below. You get 1,500 free edits with the system. It's based out of Lightroom, so you still use Lightroom. And it will just do everything that you would usually do to wedding gallery and just give you a final gallery that's completely consistent. I find that when I used to edit each image individually, that maybe I would do 100 images at a time. I'd come back, it would be nighttime now, and all of a sudden my white balance would be a little bit different. The Imagen machine does not care. So use the link down below, 1,500 free edits to get started. And you'll actually get my full Imagen profile for free. So it's not a preset, it's a preset that has been trained off of how I edit. So there are thousands, I think 35 or 40,000 images that I've edited as the training for that profile. And you get it completely for free. Usually it's $250, but if you sign up using the link down below, you'll get that for free. And it comes out at the end of each month, which is a little confusing. Sorry, it's a manual process. Someone physically goes through and they're like, oh, you came through Taylor, here's the profile. So the end of each month, you will receive that. So close to the end, maybe the 29th, 30th, 31st. But if you don't get it, send me a message on Instagram and I'll make sure that it comes your way. All right, not gonna lie, this this space is challenging because it's good light, so that's good. I have no complaints. This is best possible situation to complain in. The downside is that the exterior is so bright, but then there's just an opaque roof on top of this garden pavilion, I guess, and it makes everything really challenging in terms of exposure. So I'm in manual photography mode because if I'm not, it's going to be metering or attempting to meter for the entire scene if I'm in matrix, and it's going to be a disaster. So I'd rather be in manual for this. But because of that, as people are walking towards me, I am going up and down in shutter speed in order to manage my exposure. You'll also notice that the boxes that I had set up, so I had independent controls. If it was horizontal, it would be this C2 box that you see the vertical red outline. My autofocus is only happening within that, so it's ignoring everyone on the exterior of that. When people were coming down the aisle and I was going vertical, I had independent settings, so it would go to C1 whenever I went vertical. And I, as a second photographer, was also being very conscious of what Lindsay was doing throughout the day. If she was vertical, I would be horizontal. If she was at 35 millimeters, I would try to be at 70. I would try to give something different from what she was getting. So in this case, I stayed wider and also horizontal, which is not a thing that I would ever probably do if this was my own wedding. All right, now in about a minute, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Fundy Designer. It is the easiest way to build albums for your couples and their families. And if you're not selling prints and albums, you are leaving a lot of money on the table. So here are the basics. First, you need the images. Here we have a small collection of images from the day, and let's do an auto build on an album. You can set up a preset if you have a normal album company and size that you are typically working with. You can also do wall art, thank you cards, and slideshows if you're doing in-person sales either in real life or digitally. This makes it really easy. Now, it gets even easier. Most of the time, after this auto album build, your design is just going to be pretty much entirely done. The automatic system takes a lot of parameters into account, including timestamps, so it's going to group images together that make sense to be together in the album. For me with this design, I've included too many similar images, so I'm going to remove some and adjust some layouts. If you do want to swap images around or change a layout, both things are very easy to do. Or if you want full control, you can start with a blank page and add images from there. You can also give images ratings to show their priority for things like wall art and thank you cards. And speaking of thank you cards, now with the album done, we can move into the easiest upsell in the world, thank you cards. They're really easy to design in Fundy, and if you send some sample designs with your wedding preview images the couple of days after the wedding, there's a very, very likely chance that they're just gonna say yes and order them. One less thing for the couple to do and makes you a little bit more money. So if you want to make more money with your weddings, your families, your portraits, check out Fundy Designer. It's crazy easy to use and will absolutely make you more money. Now, back to the wedding. All right, I guess there were some spoiler images in there. So you've seen what is still to come in this video. So I was hiding behind the floral arrangement. I like to do my best to hide in a not awkward way. I'm not like actually physically trying to hide as best I can, but trying to stay out of the way, out of the view of guests. And now I'm still in DX mode. 24 to 70 is great. I feel like 70 isn't enough during a ceremony. So in DX mode on a high megapixel camera like the Z8, it gives you more than enough megapixels to go into crop mode, which gives your lenses some additional versatility. Typically I would be on a 35 to 150, the Tamron 35 to 150 f2 to f2.8 for the ceremony specifically. It's my favorite ceremony lens of all time. And it's really, really versatile in this environment. And also I still go into DX mode once I get to 150. Even on a 7200, I feel like I'm still in DX mode during the ceremony. So I really feel maybe I just can't get enough reach. Maybe I should get a bird lens. Maybe I should go to the 200 to 500 for the ceremony. I'm not going to do that, but I feel like I would rather have way more range for the ceremony than not enough. So if I only have a 50 prime for a ceremony, that's not my ideal. You can make it work, absolutely, but I would rather have something longer. And all that to say, if you are a second photographer, do something different. Maybe not the opposite. You're not going to go fisheye if your main is at 85, but do something a little bit different. See what they're doing, and don't be in the exact same spot getting the same image. Just try something different. You have the ability. You have a lot less pressure. You don't have to get the shot. So do something, and maybe you'll be surprised by the quality of what you get, or maybe you'll be disappointed. One thing we talk about a lot in photography is getting it right in camera, and sometimes you can't do that. This scene here, background completely blown out, those highlights maybe coming back, probably not really coming back with a lot of detail, but if you expose somewhere closer to this, you're going to retain some of that detail, so you are able to actually process those images in post and make them look a little bit more true to the memory. Also in digital, so I always try to get my JPEGs to a point that if I had to edit from them, I could make it work. But in digital, you have a lot more data in the shadows usually. And even if something looks like it's completely, almost entirely black, there's usually detail in there. You might be surprised with how nice you can make those images look. So I would say in digital, at least, if you can't get it right in camera, and it's just not coming together, aim on the side of underexposing rather than overexposing. And this might be an extreme-ish example, or I guess not even an extreme example. If it was extreme, they pretty much would have been entirely in shadows. I was trying to retain some of the detail of the background there. So the background is unfortunately very bright. The couple is in darkness, and in order to retain some of the detail in the background, you have to kind of aim for the middle here. If you are okay with letting the background go and turn to white, then that's totally fine. That's a choice for you. And again, I'm doing the opposite of what I can see Lindsay doing. And I'm going to show you a few of the edits. Here's one. Here is two. Here's the exit. And now Lindsay goes to a really challenging group photo of everyone that's here, including the couple, but the sun is also spotlighting certain areas. It's not the hardest situation you ever find yourself in, but it's a top 5%, I would say. And it's also a very wide scene for the distance that you can get away from people. So you got to get everyone real close. You have to be kind of loud after a ceremony. And it's just it's a hard situation to make a good photo in. Fortunately, Lindsay's awesome and she can make it work. I'm doing kind of a backup shot just to have something else just in case something were to go wrong. Now Lindsay's rolling into family photos and a few photos of wedding party, and I'm going into cocktails. And I think one of the crazy things with wedding photography is you have to be able to do all styles of photography. So you have to know what guys care about with their cars, but then also what girls care about with their dresses and their veils. So I would say if you're interested in getting into wedding photography, do all the photography you possibly can, because you never know when all of those lessons will come back into a wedding day, when it will actually matter and be important to the people that have hired you to be there, or their families, or the venue. If the venue decides they want to do a jet flyover and you can get a beautiful shot of the venue with the couple and the jets, then you've done it. You've made a marketing image. I don't get a whole lot of jet flyovers at weddings. Here we are in a cocktail hour. I'm using the 50mm f1.2 because Lindsay has been using the 24-70 for family photos. And I'm spending a little bit of time in cocktails, just wandering around. Anyone that's smiling, anyone that's happy, usually grabbing a candid photo. If anyone looks like they want a photo with whoever they're talking to, they make eye contact, I come over, I ask them if they want it. Sometimes I will spend my entire life as a second photographer at cocktail hour, and sometimes you'll go with the main photographer and you'll take some photos on whatever photo tour they're on. And for the most part, I'm trying to do something a little bit different, but when it's more of these setup shots, it's a little more challenging to do something completely different. So I just try to be on a different lens, or I try to be wider or a little bit more off center and not just shooting right over the main photographer's shoulder. Also, this picture profile, it looks so nice. The edited images are not going to look like this. There is a video about the Nikon ZF on the channel that I show all of the footage straight to camera with this profile. It looks very, very nice. If you do have time and there's some of the members of the bridal party or family around, you can also do solo headshots with them, or if their partner's around, they can do some photos or some family photos if the whole family's around. I usually make a point to announce that. I tell the couple, obviously, that I'm happy to take photos of anyone else and their families or partners, but I try to say that also when there's a group of people together. A time like this might be at that time, and sometimes they take you up on it later, and sometimes they don't, and it's fine. We're on golf carts now, and I have a higher shutter speed now, and then I try some that I brought the shutter speed way down and try to do some rolling shots, like I'm shooting an automobile on a highway, and it didn't work out so well. So I went back to 1/60th and gave a little bit of motion blur, but overall, I think the safe shot was the winner there. And for bridal party photo sessions, when I first got started in weddings, I feel like I had like an hour and a half to do just bridal party photos, and they wanted 100 different locations every time. Now I feel like my couples at least are very chill with doing just a few photos of everyone, and then they get sent off to cocktail hour. I like that flow of events a lot better than the 3-hour photo session that you have the couple for an hour and a half. While I could absolutely do something, especially if you have multiple locations, I would rather them get back to their actual day. So I like the venues that have kind of everything happening on site, that we did all the getting ready photos here, followed by the ceremony, followed by photos now, followed by the reception. And I like that, and I do my best to target venues and become preferred vendors at venues like that, because I like the flow of the day a lot better, and also selfishly it makes for a shorter day as well. So an 8-hour package usually covers everything that I need, whereas when I used to shoot multiple locations and there would usually be an offsite ceremony and getting ready at a hotel or a house, and then a reception at a completely different place, usually that would make a 12 or 14-hour day. If you are shooting this weekend, I actually have 4 weddings, so I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if you are trying to do that and they're all 8-hour days, that is reasonable. You can do that and not die. If you're shooting 14-hour wedding days, that is you could do it if you're if you're 21, but as you get a little bit older into your wedding career, it's a lot more challenging to do those back-to-back days when they are a lot longer and a lot more intense. Now, I know Lindsay is on the 50 right now, probably shooting at 1.2, so I am on the 24 to 70. I'm mostly at 24, trying to stay away from the 50 millimeter focal length. It's also nice to include a few behind the scenes photos of your main photographer, and then also get the shots that you're there to get. Now we're moving into the reception, and I'm gonna talk about flash in the car. Another thing that Nikon is awesome for, if you've ever noticed when you put a flash on, it puts some sort of artificial ISO enhancement so that you can see the entire scene a lot better. And that's great for actually seeing what you're doing. But when you want to check the ambient exposure and see what your settings are actually set to without flash, on some camera systems, you just can't do that. You have to physically take the flash off and put it back on. With Nikon, you can actually set that to a button. So I've set it to the autofocus button on the back, because I don't use that for autofocus. And when I press that button, my flash turns off. And when I release that button, my flash turns back on. I guess I could also use this if I did want to shoot some ambient photos, but I use this primarily just to see what my exposure is, because I am blending flash into scenes. If I was a studio headshot photographer, I would go into that space and I would zero out everything, and I would want a completely black frame if I took a picture. But as a wedding photographer that wants to include details, I want to have a good ambient exposure, and then I want to add flash on top of that to accentuate my subject. Nikon makes this super easy. Now, I haven't really done this on intros because I'm usually lead photographer and I have to get the safe shot. I'm at 1/30th of a second and using some direct flash. And I'm going to show you what some of these photos look like in a moment. But overall, I just like the look of them a lot. It captures the energy a lot better, but it is a riskier shot. If your couple's moving really fast, you might get some motion blur on their faces, which might make them look crazy. I was doing my best to kind of track back with them and walk at the same speed, and it worked out pretty well. And the photos look nice in color, but they also will look nice in black and white. And I deliver every photo in color and black and white if I do give them a black and white. Now I'm using some off-camera flash because Lindsay is not. And I have it in my hand and it's just in the light stand and I'm holding it off to the right-hand side there. And we're gonna walk down to the car and have my light stand on the left side of the frame there, pointed at them. There's a test shot to make sure that my flash is blending with the scene. I also have an orange gel on there, so I'm actually going to try something different and go into incandescent mode, where I'm basically changing my white balance to accept the flash. The flash is going to be really, really orange, so it makes the background kind of blue like that. I realized that wasn't the vibe that I was looking for, so another quick test shot. And I could have made the blue thing work, but you only have maybe 2 minutes with the couple, and something like that I feel like is different enough from what Lindsay was shooting, and I am happy to make that my contribution. Now the flash is off to the right-hand side. It looks pretty nice, I think. We got crazy storm this night. Look how crazy a storm is. I don't know what I can do with it. It got really windy and really wet quickly, so we couldn't really do anything with the couple, but it's cool to look at. Thanks for looking at it with me. Now, Lindsay explained the guest, flash photography. It was a brief tutorial. He's shooting his first wedding coming up. Got some flash help, and now the ambient overall. So Lindsay set up an off-camera light. It's a continuous light in the background there. Really adds some nice 3-dimension to the scene. And typically I would be on an 85mm f1.8, and it would hide some of the background distracting DJ table elements there. But today I am on this, and also I keep bumping the aperture wheel, and that's why I'm at 3.2 now. I feel like that's been happening a little bit throughout the day. You can also disable that. You can also disable the focus if you don't want to touch your focus accidentally when you're in autofocus modes. You can turn that off. I also tend to use the DX crop mode a lot in receptions as well. So ceremonies, receptions, or at least speeches is kind of the only 2 times that I'll use that. Now you have a few options for flash. You could shoot this ambient if you wanted. No problem really with that. It is a little bit of a weird cast coming from the bar. I chose to go flash and kind of get rid of a lot of that light and make my own. Now into dancing. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There's 150 different ways you can light a dance floor. You can go bounce flash, make everything look nice and soft. You can do what I'm doing here, making my shutter speed a little bit slow, not crazy slow, and setting my flash somewhere. I think the test shot I'm going to show you was way too low. I'm going to say it was like 1/64 power. Then I went up to 1/16 power, and I got to where I wanted to be. So there's the one that's not enough flash power yet. Turn it up a little bit, and now we're ready to party. You do get blackout because I have a slower shutter speed. And with the ISO boost, you actually could use autofocus, but I typically set my manual focus at this point to about 2 meters. So I know that anyone that's within 2 meters, I'm at f8, so it's going to give me a pretty wide depth of field there. So as long as they're roughly 2 meters away, I would say, or maybe even a meter at minimum, I know that they're going to be in nice focus, and it's pretty much going to be in focus to infinity. But then I move my camera around a little bit more and get those light trails. All right, we'll end with a little bit of a slideshow of the day. These are the final edits. Thanks for joining me on this tour. Again, if you do want to make albums very quickly, as well as wall art and thank you cards, check out Fundy. I will put a link down below. Fundy is also a human being, and he's a great guy. I will put a link on the screen here to the last podcast we did, and after this podcast, he tried to convince me. He lives in Portland, and he tried to convince me. I guess there's a race that starts at the top of a mountain and ends in the ocean, and he tried to get me to do that. I'm not gonna do that race probably, but it's nice to know that it's out there and that you can run from a mountain to the ocean for fun and for charity, I believe. That's all. Any questions, put them down below. Happy to answer you, and see you again next time.